Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. This is going to be my Game of Thrones episode 4 Q&A video. Just careful for spoilers if you haven't seen the episode yet. All kinds of awesome stuff we have to talk about. Snowbowl, Unburnt Daenerys. One of the coolest things that happened after last night's episode was everyone was like, well, you know, the CG during that fire scene did look kind of weird. But Emilia Clarke came forward and was like, nope, it me. That's definitely my naked body. She actually clarified that the people, like the outlets in the previous years that had been reporting that she had a version of a no nudity clause was misreported. So apparently Emilia Clarke totally down for doing nude scenes as long as it forwards the story. So I know there's a lot of people wondering, why she looks a little bit different this season than she has in previous seasons. You have to remember that this is season 6 of the show, so all the actors have been working on this for almost 7 years. Look at little Bran in the pilot episode. Look how young he looks. Now look at him in season 6. You kind of understand why she didn't come forward before this to explain everything, because it would have completely spoiled this big moment at the end of the episode. Here we go though, question time. Let's start with some Daenerys Unburnt. So Whitleypedia asks, even if she's immune to fire, she'd still asphyxiate from lack of oxygen, but who cares? It was cool. I think that's kind of the intention. The logic might be a little bit bendy in the way it works out, but they wanted to have a sequel to that Unburnt moment from the end of season 1. But I think even if you're completely spellbound by beautiful Emilia Clarke here, you're still thinking about her hatching the dragons, and that's kind of the intention. This really big power play, so you kind of wave your hand at the logic a little bit, and you understand that they're trying to imply that some magic is in play, even if they're changing some of the interpretation of how that works from the books. The other really important thing that's going on here is the Dothraki are swearing fealty to her. They're just like in awe of her power. But during season 1, before she'd hatched the dragons, before she became Daenerys Unburnt, she'd asked 3 people to become her blood riders. They refused her. This was after Khal Drogo had died. But then after she became Daenerys Unburnt, they were like, oh my god, you're amazing. We will totally be your blood riders. So the same thing will probably happen after this episode. Next question, Amanath asks, if the Tyrells have the second largest army in Westeros, who has the largest? Well, technically it's the Westerlands, so that'd be the Lannisters. They can raise about 50,000 people in the books, but I think the TV show might be shrinking those numbers a little bit. And the reach in the books is a little bit different, so we're already a little off book here. They say they can raise between 80 and 100,000 soldiers. So I guess in terms of TV show army size, we're going to have to wait to see how it plays out, because technically the Reach should have the largest standing army, but on the TV show, that might be the Lannisters in combination with the Crown Lands. So it's probably best just to ignore book army size when you're thinking about TV show army size. Because even the Boltons having 5,000 men sounds like it's been shrunk quite a bit. The Vale, for instance, is supposed to have 45,000 men, so imagine 45,000 men going after 5,000. It'd be ridiculous, so I don't know if that's going to play out that way on the TV show. I'll be interested to see how big the Night's King army is, though, because a lot of people are like, aren't there supposed to be hundreds of thousands of wildlings? Well, you have to remember that the Night's King took the majority of those people at Hardhome and turned them into whites. Next question, Game of Fleons asks, why is it called pink even though it's not pink? You're talking about the pink letter, so it's called pink because of the color of the wax. It's supposed to look pink even though it looks kind of red on the TV show. The other name for it in the books is the bastard letter, so you could call it the bastard letter, you could call it the pink letter, but the big question in the books was who actually wrote it. Did Ramsay write it? Did Mance Rayder secretly write it, forging Ramsay's name, trying to get Jon Snow to march south? So there's a lot more Littlefinger style plotting and scheming, pitting people against each other in the books. Next question, Jonathan asks, in the episode 5 preview, the Night's King looks directly at Bran. Can Bran actually teleport? Well, the powers of Bran are a little fuzzy on the TV show. No, I don't think that he can actually teleport, though. I don't think that he can physically teleport his body around. He can teleport his consciousness, but as this is happening, like you see Mira trying to shake him awake, like, please wake up, Bran. So as he's free to move about in astral form, his body is very vulnerable. Next question, Shamil asks, is it just me or is season 6 all about girl power? Well, I know what you're talking about. What I think is going on, though, is it's more of destruction of the patriarchy. We talked about it a little after the Umber betrayal. Like, you have all these young lords deposing their fathers, killing their fathers in the case of Ramsay, destroying some of the traditions that came before, like Daenerys destroying the tradition of slavery from Meereen. People are really freaked out about that, but you can see that it's more of a positive tale in the case of Daenerys. Cersei is the other side of that. She's destroying the patriarchy, she's destroying the small council, but that might lead to something very terrible, so it's not quite as positive as what Daenerys is doing and destroying the patriarchy of Slaver's Bay. But you also have Sansa up in the north, who's trying to destroy Ramsay, who, even though he has destroyed his father and doesn't really care about his traditions, seems like he's going to be every bit as terrible as his father was. So Sansa's storyline is all about destroying that. So I wouldn't say that season 6 is so much about girl power, like look at all these powerful women, as it is about destroying the patriarchy of the world. But have some fun with thinking about how that figures into your ideas of what the endgame should be, for season 8 endgame. Next question, Jai asks, why is Littlefinger wanting to team the Vale up with the Starks to take down the Boltons? How does this help Littlefinger? Well, I think it doesn't so much directly benefit him as it puts someone in power that he knows he has a fairly good relationship with, although I do think there's going to be a reckoning with respect to Sansa. The funny thing about Littlefinger is that the actor who plays him says that he feels like his character wants to atone for what happened to Sansa, that he didn't understand how bad Ramsay was, even though in the books, Littlefinger sounds like he's a very smart person. So TV show Littlefinger does feel very bad about what happened to Sansa. He's trying to make amends. Part of the fun this season of Sansa's rise to power will be seeing how she deals with him when they meet again. But I think a lot of this alliance that he's trying to form is in his own self-interest. Look at the influence that he has over Sweet Robin. He'll do anything he says. Should we throw him through the moon door? So Littlefinger is to Sweet Robin, as Cersei is to Tommen. Tommen would probably do anything to protect his mother, so Littlefinger wants to maintain that relationship and install someone in a position of power who also likes him. So I think endgame, what he's hoping is that he can marry Sansa to Sweet Robin, so he might feel like he would have control over the largest standing army in Westeros in that case, if he has the combined forces of the Vale and the North. But that is all dependent on Sansa not hanging him from a tree the first chance she gets. Next question, Stan asks, what do you think about the theory that the High Sparrow is really Howland Reed? I'd never really bought into this theory before, and I don't think there's any evidence based on the way the TV show's using him that supports it either. The TV show's really presenting him as this figure that Cersei cannot influence with any of the things she would normally use. She can't use her body because he doesn't seem to care about that. She can't use her money, her Lannister gold, because he doesn't care about that either. So I think the TV show's just trying to tell you that he's so terrifying because there's nothing that Cersei has that he wants. Next question, Mark asks, I wish they wouldn't stop at season 8. I mean, they've already deviated from the book, so they can make stuff up and have more seasons. Well, people are of two minds. They're like, don't go too far off book, but don't stop doing stuff. There's a lot of stuff they've cut out, but I think what the TV show is doing is trying to be true to Martin's original plan for the story. The original Song of Ice and Fire story was only supposed to be 3 books, but there were a lot of twists that caused Martin to expand that into what is now 7 novels. So that's why when a lot of people point to like Daenerys and Meereen, they call that filler story in the books because Martin was stalling for time, trying to explain this big jump in time for Bran to learn about being a green seer, for Arya to learn about being a faceless man. So it sounds like based on Martin's original outlines, season 5 of Daenerys wouldn't have happened at all. After season 4, when she rode into Meereen, in the Masters, as they said in this last episode, we offered her ships to sail to Westeros. She would have just taken all her people and sailed to Westeros, and we would be having our War for the Dawn right now. So in a roundabout way, you could say that the TV show has already expanded, but obviously it's going based on the stuff that Martin actually ended up writing. So I think everybody's in favor of there not being filler. It's really just the hard out date that everybody's freaked out about now. The idea that season 8 would be the last season, and currently the actors are only signed through season 7, so they still have to figure out season 8, because it sounds like what they might end up doing is the Breaking Bad Mad Men thing, where they break the final season into 2 separate seasons so that they can amortize the costs across 2 years, just because they're worried about the added cost of all the extra special effects that they're doing now that they weren't doing before. Next question, Rek asks, do you think George R. R. Martin feels any pressure from the show and he'd rather the show continue to spin off on their own, or do you think he's working with them to keep the main plots in line? Well, he's actually not doing any work on Game of Thrones now. He didn't write any scripts for last season or this season so that he could finish his books. They really are diverging quite a bit, and he just posted a sample chapter. People are treating it like a really big deal, but he posts new sample chapters every year. It's just a new Arianne Martell chapter, and a lot of people felt like it was in response to the lack of a Dorne storyline this season. So I think it's a bit of a love-hate relationship where he's really happy to see his work happening on screen. Like, he's really happy that the series is getting made, but every once in a while he disagrees with some of the story choices that they make, just like any author would. Next question, Aaron asks, does Melisandre actually saying that Jon is the prince who is promised change anything? Not necessarily, but remember, the show tries to be very literal, very upfront about the way it's teasing you with things. If you're part of the cult that believes R+L=J, which I'm also a big part of, then you probably thought that he was the prince who was promised anyway. But I think lines of dialogue like that, little teasers that they slip in, are more to lead the audience along. Most of the people that watch the TV show, probably don't get too hardcore into theories, or maybe they haven't read all the books. So the TV show has to explain everything that it's going to pay off. So I think this is just more set up for the Tower of Joy payoff, the R+L=J. The idea that he's a really important figure in the War for the Dawn, just like Daenerys Unburnt is a really important figure, even though the book explanation for both of these characters and the prophecy of the prince who was promised is vastly more complicated and open to interpretation. Thank you everybody for submitting questions. These are always a ton of fun to do. Just remember that the TV show is kind of like a Cliff's Notes for the books. So any explanation that you get from the books will be vastly more complex. So even if you aren't now, I definitely recommend at some point you try to read the books. If you're not a big reader, the audiobooks are fun to listen to. I'm not a big fan of the narrator, but it is a really good alternative if you want the book experience. But giveaway time. Congratulations to this week's giveaway winner, Angel of Sarcasm. You win a $20 Amazon gift card. Just be sure to private message me on the back end of my channel so I can get your contact details. That's just on the About page. So what's going to happen next is there's a big battle royale on The Flash tonight, but I've already got a couple ideas for my next Game of Thrones bonus video, so that should post by the end of this week. While you guys wait for that video to post, you can click here for my episode 4 video, and you can click here for the R+L=J refresher. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Let's high five. I'll see you guys tonight.